Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, I'm going to talk about creativity and the slow stitching process. Specifically, how you can be inspired by different things in your life, including your fears, and turn that into a slow stitching project. Now, I find this process very helpful, almost therapeutic, because I can look at my fear in a different way. It can be something quite beautiful. So in this project, it was very nuanced. There were lots of layers, and I think we're all complex in that way. So I started with my fear, and in this case, it was a fear of alligators. And I studied them, went to a park and saw them in nature, and then created a project from what I saw. So I want to take you through the steps of what I did. Now, this project was a long time in the making project. My fear of alligators, well, I can trace that back to childhood. Never really encountered them as a kid, but through the years, there was always something about them that kind of terrified me. Then when I moved to Florida, I realized how prevalent they were. In any waterway, you can expect, or maybe not, definitely see an alligator, but you knew there was a chance of seeing an alligator. They tend to be more freshwater, but they've been known to be in saltwater as well. The more I saw the alligators, the more fascinated I was with them. Now, they were always a little scary, but the fascination overtook that fear eventually. And it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. So then years later, I visited a little park that features alligators called Gatorland. They have lots of alligators, birds, and other animals. It's become a sanctuary, really. But they sell tickets, so it's like Disneyland, but forget alligators. They have alligator shows, alligator feeding, lots of different habitats with alligators. And that was really educational for me. I think it's geared towards families and kids and education, but I had a blast. And I also got to start to overcome my fear of alligators. Now, I still have a healthy respect for them, but because of this process, I was able to reduce that fear, that terror, into a healthy respect. I even had my picture taken with an alligator and a python around my neck. So that was rather exciting for me. And that was really the start of this project. My fear was definitely the ultimate start, but actually encountering it and exploring it was really what this project is about. So fast forward to present time, I decided I was going to go to the Taylor Park and view alligators in the wild. I got up early, packed my camera gear, and I went to the park. It's a beautiful park. It's not just for alligators. There's frisbee, there's little huts that you can have picnics in and parties. It's just a lovely place. But I purposely got there at the crack of dawn as soon as they open at 7 a.m. And I went around walking and seeing all the different sights. There were birds and bunnies and squirrels. And I loved to see the water birds. There were egrets and herons and skimmers and ibises. A lot of these were new to me, or fairly new to me, but they were all beautiful, particularly because they were in the wild. When I was walking around, I saw some young kids fishing, and I talked to them about the gators, and I asked them if they had seen them. Well, that triggered their helpful side, and they couldn't wait to point out where the gators were. So they pointed out, and I walked around photographing them, and I found some beauties. Now, after I got home and had a chance to look through my photos and really digest what I saw, I decided that I was going to make my usual. I make a map of the things I did. Now, it's a very rough image. I make a lot of cartoon images. I make symbols, so to show that I did a lot of walking, I made just some footprints. I made a fishing pole for the boys that showed me where the gators were, and just some other things that I saw that really stood out to me, like that bridge. So this was my map. This doesn't have to be perfect. I could trace the images. I could print images and paste them down to my map if I wanted to, but I like to make those silly sketches. And from there, I took it to the next level where I went to my sketchbook. And what I was intrigued most with, what really drew my attention, was that eye of that alligator peeking out of the water. It just looked so ominous. And I know in the past that would have terrified me, but this time it was just a little tinge of fear. And it was still beautiful. So I looked online and did some research, and I found out about alligator eyes, and I found out how intriguing they really are. They have two eyelids, ones that close up and down, and ones that close side to side, so that they could see in the murky water. And that eyelid that closes side to side is clear, so it's like a goggle. Then I went down the rabbit hole on the internet, looking at all the different aspects of alligator eyes, and I recorded them in my art journal. So on my art journal spread with the 2 pages, one page has my sketch of the alligator eye with the interesting skin and the texture, and the other page is all information that I found intriguing. Now, reading it may be intriguing to you or may not, but that's okay because it's my book, so it's things that I found that I thought, ooh, this inspires me somehow. Now, from here is where I could start my slow stitching. So I went to my fabric stash and pulled out a bunch of fabrics to play with. I found some fabric that I thought would make a good texture for the skin of the alligator, which is normally gray or black, but this one has some blue in it. I happen to like blue, so this worked for me. And it was upholstery fabric, so it was thick and textured in itself. I cut it out to just show the eye peeking out from the surface of the water because I really wanted to focus on that. Then I found some colors of fabric for the eyeball. I found a little patch of leather to make the little pupil. And then I got to work. I pieced it down into a collage, and then I started to sketch over it, making the little texture of the crackled skin on the alligator to make it look bumpy. And then I got to work making that little eyeball really come to life. I used lots of colors of embroidery floss, lots of lines, and I've got the look that I wanted. I stitched it down to a fabric book page, and that really worked for me. Now, this is a fabric book page that I'm going to use. The other side was from a previous work in a previous video, and I'll link that below, from the turtle pond. And now I have an alligator eye layout to use in that book. I continued playing with it. I added some stitches just to echo the colors that I used in my alligator eye. And then I added some fabric pieces. But when it was done, I decided I really needed to incorporate that alligator eye onto the page. So I kept that texture and continued with it so that it overlapped not only the eye, but the page. So then I added the title, Alligator Eye, and I just stitched that with a split stitch and a little bit of a back stitch every now and again to tidy it up. When I was happy with the way it looked, I have my page complete. And this is how it looks. Now, I really enjoyed this process. I enjoyed it because I explored something new, I explored a fear that I had, and I got to put all that energy into my slow stitching, into my work, my piece. So I took a fear that I had, worked with it, played around with it, explored it, encountered it, and created with it. So I used fear in a very interesting way in my art. I used it as the inspiration and the motivation to create something. Have you used any of your fears in your art? For maybe drawing a fear or somehow incorporating an image that frightens you into your work? If you have, comment below. I'd love to hear about it. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thank you for joining me today.